Here we are once again on the Brattlecast. I'm Jordan Rich. Always great fun to sit down with my good friend Ken Gloss, owner of the famous Brattle Bookshop in Boston on West Street. Go to brattlebookshop.com to find out more if you're just a new listener. And boy, there are a lot of podcasts called Brattlecast out there, well over 200 now. So you can spend a lot of time having fun. And this is one of my favorite subjects, history, and particularly presidential history. And you've got news of particular collection of signatures that's pretty impressive. Tell us about it.
I was at a house in New England. We were looking at a relatively large library. It was interesting. They had some very nice books, and we had been called up. And as we were looking, they said, we also have something else we want to deal with separately. And I said, when I'm finished, I'll go look at this. And what they had, it was one book in a beautiful leather binding. There was probably, my guess is, that it was probably put together somewhere around the bicentennial. So the leather binding itself was not that old, but it was gorgeous. Someone had really put a lot of time, effort, and probably money making the binding. And what it said was Presidents Washington, Nixon. Now, so you look at it, there are pictures, but what this was that made it special, there was a signed letter document of every single president from Washington to Nixon. So you turn the page, there was some sort of engraving, portrait, picture of the president. You turn the page again, there's a document of George Washington's with George Washington's signature on it.
This is an actual document? That's
an actual document.
Not a copy. Okay.
Not a copy from the 1700s. It's there. You can touch it. It's in the book. You turn the page. The next page is John Adams. Turn the picture, and there's a long letter of John Adams talking about sort of politics and basis. Turn the next page. There's Thomas Jefferson, and keep turning. And fairly soon you get to Madison, Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Jackson, all the way up through Lincoln, where you had Lincoln. What there was a document that he had filled out when he was a lawyer early in his career, all handwritten by Lincoln. Keep going, and you're getting into Grant, who was very collectible. And then there are presidents in the middle, like Millard Fillmore, Polk, and some of the others Buchanan, that you might not know as well. But then you get up to Teddy Roosevelt, and then Franklin Roosevelt, John Kennedy. Nixon was where this collection stopped, although now you could even go through a few more. But it's interesting when you look at a collection like this, because I have to look at its value. One of the first things that struck me was, wow, this is really neat. And again, I get to turn the page, look at, read, touch the document. What we also did to try to evaluate it, because we didn't have huge amounts of time, we took a picture of every single page so that when I was working up a bid on this, that I could sit down and read everything that was there very carefully. One thing, though, that was very noticeable, because there are degrees of value in this type of collection, and it's not the only one that's ever been done. People collect all the presidents. There are other people who collect all the signers of the Declaration of Independence. There are other people who collect, grouping like that. Because for collecting, saying you want to collect all the presidents gives you boundaries. It gives you fill in the blanks. But also there's a budget, and what you feel you can pay, what you can afford. And this collection was great. I mean, you can't have documents of Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Lincoln, Kennedy, and not be thrilled with it. But one of the first things I mentioned to people, and I noticed right away because I was looking for it, these letters and documents were not when they were president. That's a whole different price range. In other words, the Washington letter was almost at the turn of the 18th to 19th century. The other letters were a little bit later or a little bit before they were president, like the Lincoln was when he was a lawyer. an upper value of when people collect presidents, that they want it when they were president, on White House stationery, so on. So immediately you look at that and you say, this is still, I mean, you're still talking tens of thousands of dollars, but you might not be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. The next thing that you look for is, what's the content? What is the letters and documents about? And in this case, they were all interesting, but it wasn't a letter, let's say, of George Washington talking about signing and having the Constitution coming in and following it, or it wasn't, Jefferson sending Lewis and Clark out west. So again, the letters were and documents were all good, but they weren't the next level that would be presidential and important, which you could start getting into even the millions of dollars. Another thing that I looked for is, you look at the condition of the letters. And remember that a lot of these are quite old. They're done with certain types of ink, and have they faded? Were they ever in the sunlight? Is the signature in particular bold and legible and not worn down? So that's something you look for. In this case, everything was in good condition. All of the signatures, the writing, it hadn't faded, which is very much a plus. Because if you're buying a signature or buying a letter, you want to be able to see it, read it, have it stand out. Of course, determining the value and what it's worth is a very important part of the collection. One of the first things that I look for is, what presidents. It started at Washington, goes up to Nixon, get to turn the page, see that everyone is there. The next thing I look for are the documents done when the president was president. The collectors like that if they're collecting presidential. In this case, no, a lot of them were done before, after presidency, and that can make a huge difference in the value. You're still in the tens of thousands of dollars regardless, but sometimes if you get all presidential on White House stationery as president, that's another level. Also, what the content of the letter is. If it's talking about something very important, maybe they're talking about a war, or if it's Lincoln, it's during the Civil War. If it's someone like Jefferson, he's talking about sending Lewis and Clark out west. If there's that, can get it into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another one to look for that's actually interesting is, one of the most valuable letters would be presidential letter signed by William Henry Harrison.
I know why.
And it's regardless what the letter's about.
Because of the short term.
A very short term. Harrison, at the inauguration, caught pneumonia, got sick, and died within a few days. And so he did sign a few things as president, but not only that he died very shortly after, but he was sick the whole time. So just anything signed by Harrison as president would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's another thing you look for. You look at, so what is it, presidential, non-presidential? What's the content? Also, you look at the condition. Fortunately, all of these were in good shape. You want to look at a letter. Has it faded? Is the signature bold and bright and clean? And so all of that enters into what the value is. And you can go from a collection of presidents that are still going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, which is still a huge amount of money, to get up to the hundreds of thousands, and you could even get into the millions of dollars, depending on what your budget and time. This one was in the tens of thousands, but I got to touch each one of them. I got to take them. I took pictures of every one of them so that I could read them and more thoroughly go through them, working up a bid. I also called a colleague, who I know has had collections like this, and described things to them, sent them pictures. We're going to work together on this, and he's quite excited. Now, of course, the whole thing could get to be we make this bid, we're waiting to hear, and you could either get the, yay, we got it, or someone else got in. And one of the things that I'm a little concerned about with this one is I have a feeling we're not bidding against an auction company or a dealer. We might be bidding against a collector. And of course, a collector isn't looking that they have to buy it and make a profit. They're looking that we might be able to pay retail. So we're waiting, we're seeing. Hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll find out. But no matter what, I got to see it, hold it, touch it, and read the documents, and it's wonderful. It's fascinating.
It's absolutely thrilling. To even talk to you, who has held it, is thrilling for me because I'm such a fan of American history and the presidents.
I'll tell you what, Jordan, if we get it, and I won't guarantee that we will, if I do get it and it's here, because you live really close, I'll give you a
walk
call.
over and take a look at Lincoln's page.
Walk over. We'll take a picture with it.
I'll actually take a look at Buchanan's page because nobody probably wants to look at Buchanan, but I will just for the heck of it. Ken, as always, you're so fascinating, and what a life and what a great passion, and the curiosity that you have is what drives you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on the Brattlecast.
Well, one of the things, as you know, when you're working and you work long and hard, but you do something you love, it doesn't feel like you're working long and hard.